Hi guys, welcome back to Adira. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Valley. I'm co-founder of Adira.me, and today I'm here to share with you the story about the Bloody Mary. And no, I'm not talking about the cocktail, and I'm not talking about the scary story. Today we're going to be talking about Queen Mary the First and her health life, menstrual health life. There's a lot of things that you probably don't know, and I would like to discuss them with you today. It's actually very ironic how she was nicknamed Bloody Mary because Queen Mary I actually lacked of a period, which is what we call today amenorrhea. Before we go ahead and get started, I actually want to put out a small disclaimer. What we're going to be talking about today, and all of the information that I'm going to go ahead and give you are just theories and hypotheses that have been given by doctors and historians throughout time with the recorded information that we have on Mary Tudor's health life. So in no means am I diagnosing her, am I saying that she did have all of these things. We're just making assumptions with the symptoms that she had. So just go ahead and keep in mind that. Also, again, this video is not a diagnosis for any of you. If you or anyone you know are having any of the symptoms mentioned today, please go ahead and visit your doctor or your OB-GYN as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and let's go ahead and get started. If I keep looking down, it's because I have a lot of notes written, and it's because I want to give you accurate information, so I'm sorry about that. Bloody Mary, Mary the First, Queen Mary, or Mary Tudor, however you want to call her, was actually the first woman to rule England in her own right, meaning she did not have to marry a king to get the title of a queen. She ruled England from October 1, 1553 up until her death, which was November 17, 1558, at the age of 42. She died during the influenza pandemic, but the real reason for her death is believed to be either related to uterine or ovarian cancer because she suffered from extreme abdominal pains since a very young age. Okay, so why was she called Bloody Mary? I'm giving you a little bit of backstory on Queen Mary before we actually get to the subject, because I want you to understand all of the things that happened for her to develop all of these symptoms that we're going to talk about later on. She was actually called Bloody Mary because she burned at least 300 people at the stake for going against her religious views. So basically her name is done because of the persecution of the Protestants in an attempt to restore the Roman Catholicism in England. But if we're going to nickname her Bloody Mary because of this, shouldn't her father have been nicknamed Bloody Henry, or her sister Bloody Elizabeth, because a lot of people also died under their reign? Well, we can actually hold one person responsible, and I'm going to explain in a little second who it was. But let's just keep in mind that Tudor England was actually a very brutal age. It was actually very normal for bloody punishments to be used as execution methods. So not only did they burn people alive, but there was also beheading, boiling, and even people being hung. The difference with Mary Tudor was that right after her death,
it's not funny, but it's uncomfortable, and that's why I'm laughing.
Protestant martyrist John Fox wrote a book called The Acts and Monuments, which is now better known as Fox's Book of Martyrs. This book was actually a detailed account of each and every martyr that died under his or her faith under the Catholic Church. The book was first published in 1563. It went through a lot of editions, and it wasn't up until the 17th century that the book was finalized, but it was abbreviated to only include the most sensational episodes of torture and death under Queen Mary's reign. So that's why she gets her nickname Bloody Mary. But the irony is that in fact, she wasn't actually that bloody because, as I said before, she was suffering from amenorrhea. Queen Mary was said to suffer from a lot of mental and menstrual health issues. And here we're going to explain how, why, when, what, and all of that. So Mary Tudor was born on February 16, 1516. She was actually the fifth child of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, but she was the only one to actually survive past infancy. Her father was actually very disappointed because he didn't have a male heir, so he was very eager to remarry. In this situation, he annulled his marriage with Catherine of Aragon, which results in Mary being an illegitimate princess. In 1533, Henry marries Anne Boleyn, who bore him a daughter, which would be the future Queen Elizabeth I, which reigns just after Queen Mary dies. Henry marries 4 more times before his death in 1547, and he gets his long-awaited male heir, Edward VI, as a result of his third marriage with Jane Seymour. Upon Henry's death, the official order of succession was Edward. He reigned for 6 years, followed by Mary and then Elizabeth. Why is this important? It's important because the annulment of Mary's father with his mother, Catherine of Aragon, actually plays a big role in Mary's mental health. Due to the deprivation of the company of her mother, because her dad didn't allow them to see each other, and the cruelty that her father gave Mary, she developed a lot of illnesses, including fever, anorexia, indigestion, lack of sleep, and even depression. Her father would tell her that she was incapable of succession to the throne, and at times he would even threaten her to have her beheaded. So it was to no surprise that she would have all of these health issues. By the age of 15, all her symptoms start to match with having hysteria. So we could say that by the age of 15 is when she starts coinciding her menstruation. By the age of 19, she starts suffering from amenorrhea. She starts complaining from racking headaches. She has attacks of palpitation. She suffers from recurrent indigestion. And apparently she suffered from such extreme abdominal pain that she described these times as times of melancholy, and she was often very depressed because of this. Also keep in mind that Mary had what is seemed to be 2 pregnancies, which we could link today with pseudocyesis, which is most commonly known as a ghost pregnancy, because she had all of the symptoms that a normal pregnant woman has, but she never actually gave birth. Also, her vision was impaired. It was assumed to be short-sightedness, but at the age of 42, right before she dies, her vision was so bad, whatever was written had to be read out loud to her because she couldn't even see up the words up close. When she dies, it's suggested that it was probably influenza because of the influenza pandemic at the time, but we can assume it probably could have been because of a menstrual health issue that she had. The Illness and Death of Mary Tudor by Journal of the Royal Society of Medicine gives us a little bit of backstory on all of the symptoms that Mary Tudor had and what could have been the possible diagnosis or the possible illnesses or issues that Queen Mary could have suffered from. So there's actually 4. We're going to go over them in order, the last one being the one that links up to her symptoms the most. There's a lot of medical terms and a lot of things that I didn't know beforehand, so I'm going to try and explain them as thoroughly as I can, just so that you all understand as well. So the first thing Mary Tudor could have suffered from is hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism is actually a condition in which the thyroid gland doesn't produce enough thyroid hormone. Hypothyroidism's deficiency of thyroid hormones can disrupt things like the heart rate, body temperature, and all aspects of your metabolism. It's usually more prevalent in older women, but we can see it in Mary because she had a loss of hair. She didn't even have eyebrows. She had dry skin, and she was said to be always in sort of like a lethargic state of mind. But severe headaches and impairment of the vision, which Mary had, is not a symptom of hypothyroidism. The second issue we could see symptoms of is pseudocyesis, and this is because of her 2 alleged pregnancies. In pseudocyesis, we may find amenorrhea, also a gain in weight, and even galactorrhea. If you don't know what galactorrhea is milky nipple discharge, but it's not related to the normal milk production that comes from breastfeeding. It's actually not a disease, but it could be a sign of other underlying issues. So if you or anyone, if you are suffering from galactorrhea, please visit your doctor. You might want to get that checked. It usually occurs in women who have never given birth or that have passed their menopause. But again, in pseudocyesis, none of the symptoms include extreme headaches and vision impairment. The third issue we can see symptoms of in Mary Tudor is PCOS, or polycystic ovary syndrome, mostly because of her menstrual chaos, her weight gain, and all of the abdominal pains that she had. Hirsutism, which she also had, is also a symptom of PCOS. Hirsutism is excess of the male hormone in women, which this is called androgen. What this does, it gives excess hair in places that women don't necessarily get. So it could be face, chest, and even back. Other symptoms of PCOS also include virilism, occasionally galactorrhea, but again, vision impairment is not a symptom of PCOS. Now, the issue that sinks the most with all of the symptoms that Mary Tudor was having is actually something called prolactinoma. Prolactinoma is a non-cancerous tumor that develops in the pituitary gland on the base of your brain. It causes the pituitary gland to make too much of a hormone called prolactin. Prolactin is the hormone in charge of getting your breast to develop, and the one in charge of developing milk when you have already given birth. It can happen to both men and women. So there's actually two types of complications that you can have from having prolactinomas. One is from having too much levels of prolactin in your blood, and then the other one would be from the size of the tumor you have on your pituitary gland. That could potentially affect your brain. So if you have too much prolactin in your blood, you're going to have a condition called hyperprolactinemia, which can cause infertility and even bone loss. In most cases, it can be treated with medicine, surgery, and in very rare cases, you'll have access to radiation therapy. So prolactinomas are usually small. They're less than 1 centimeter in diameter. These small tumors are called microprolactinomas. Less commonly, you will have a tumor that is larger than 1 centimeter, and these are called macroprolactinomas. Macroprolactinomas can press against near parts of the pituitary gland and the brain. So you can have complications that would include vision problems, which we know Mary had because she had a very bad vision impairment up until she died. Headaches, which she also had. Low levels of other pituitary hormones such as thyroid hormones and cortisol, which we know she had. And among women, some of the symptoms you may experience are changes in menstruation, infertility, milky discharge, which we know it's called galactorrhea, loss of interest in sex, and in men, apart from having a loss of interest in sex, you can also experience erectile dysfunction. So the causes of these tumors are actually unknown. In some cases, genetic factors may play a role in it, but prolactin levels normally rise during pregnancy and breastfeeding. Other times when you might be experiencing a rise in prolactin levels can be due to physical stress, exercises, meals, injury in the chest area, epileptic seizures, and even nipple stimulation. There's two ways to actually diagnose prolactinomas, and that's the first one would be a blood test. So doctors would prescribe a blood test to measure the levels of prolactin in your blood. If your levels of prolactin are high, you might be getting an MRI or a CAT scan to make sure to see if you have any prolactinomas or tumors in your pituitary gland. So if you see all of the symptoms that Mary had throughout her lifespan, link up the most to having a prolactinoma. Had she lived today, a diagnosis could have been made, and then various methods of treatment would have been available. But take into consideration that in Tudor time, there were no blood tests, no x-rays, no MRIs, no CAT scans. It was basically impossible to diagnose. Now, take into consideration also that your PMS was said to be hysteria. And there was also taboo in menstruation.
I guess nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed.
I hope you liked the story. I hope you learned a little bit more about Mary Tudor's life. About issues that we may experience because of our menstrual health. Take care, guys. If you have any of the symptoms we mentioned today, please visit your doctor as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and don't forget to visit us on our social media for more tips and more information about your menstrual and your body health. Don't forget to check us out at www.adira.me. Like, share, comment, and subscribe, and see you on the next video. Thank you, guys. Bye.